Hello everyone. My name is Igor Kalinic. I'm a head of sector here at SMEs, which is the European Executive Agencies for EIC, European Innovation Council, and SMEs. I'm very happy to welcome and very honored to welcome all the speakers and all of you because today we have an important seminar in our series that is called Enhancing Global Markets. So basically in this series, we support SMEs in going international beyond EU borders, especially in Africa, Americas, and Asia. This is we are organizing this episode, let's call it like this, together with our colleagues from EU Japan Center for Industrial Cooperation. And this is done actually with a very good reason, because EU Japan Center for Industrial Cooperation is a project of the European Union that is managed by our agency, and also they are part from the Enterprise Europe Network, which is also managed within this agency. So today we are really wrapping it up. Next to it, we have also a number of projects in the area of biotech and digital innovations. It is really the perfect place where to be. I don't want to steal too much time with the usual blah blah to our speakers, because they are the one that will be providing the core and the information that you all need. So I would like immediately to pass the word, I think, to Mirte.
Yes, thank you so much, Igor, for this very enthusiastic and warm introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today, and we will present a little bit about doing business in Japan, and specifically about two main sectors, the biotechnologies industry and digital innovation. We will then proceed with a little bit of an introduction about what we do at the EU Japan Center for Industrial Cooperation to support European SMEs here in Japan, and maybe touch a little bit upon the cultural and business etiquette and culture here. And then we will have a Q&A question at the end after a presentation from Selvita, which is one of our companies that have been on our missions and have participated before in the center services, and they will share their experiences with you. After that, we will have a Q&A, as I said, and if you have any questions during any of the presentations, I heartily invite you to write them in the chat box so we can address them later on. Then without further ado, I would like to invite my colleague Danielle Kralki for the first part of the presentation. Danielle is our EN partner coordinator working on the biotechnology industry, and he will be able to tell you a little bit more about the specific sector. The floor is yours, Daniel.
Hello, good morning. My name is Daniel, and as introduced by Mirte, I am in charge of the biotech sector in the way that we organize a mission, which will be told about later in the sector. And without further ado, let me start with the first slide. Mirte, can you move that? Okay, great. So first of all, disclaimer, we said biotechnology in the title, but I will in this presentation mainly refer to red biotech, medicine and also healthcare, which is also the target for the mission that the center organizes and the target of most of our activities in the center. I'll start with a short overview about the market, have a slide about policies in the sector, and also introduce a few important players. Next one, please. So Japan is still the world's third largest market for pharmaceuticals, and biopharmaceuticals are one of the driving forces in this market. And why it's such an important market, it's because everybody knows probably Japan has a very aging population, bigger problems than most European countries. More than 30% of the people are beyond the age of 65. and many people have very high age, and that relates with a high occurrence of cancer and dementia and other age-related diseases. And therefore, the demand for innovative therapies are high, and it's also interesting to know that foreign companies play a very big part in the Japanese market, and that's mainly global pharma companies. Another important trait of the Japanese environment is the stable regulation situation and a strict pharmaceutical safety regime as it is in Europe or, for example, in the US. Next slide, please. So I've split this in two. So pharmaceuticals, as I said, 70% of the pharmaceuticals from foreign companies, mainly large global pharma. In the medical equipment market, that's similar. More than 50% comes from overseas. The graph I put here is a bit difficult to read from the first view, but it is very insightful, I think. So the bubbles give the size of the submarkets. Then on the y-axis, you see the further on top, the larger is actually the share of the Japanese players in the market. So the lower, the bigger the influence from foreign companies. And on the x-axis, you actually see the growth rate of each submarket. Next slide, please. Okay, it's also worth mentioning that Japan has excellent research in the medical and medicine field. Just in the period from 2012 to 2018, there were 4 Nobel Prize awards for Japanese researchers, and that includes important research discoveries such as the one on pluripotent cells, induced pluripotent stem cells, IPS, and also the discovery of inhibition of negative immune regulation, so very important for immunotherapies that are gaining traction in the market. And that, of course, gave a boost to further investments in advanced medicine research. Next slide. So to give a few negative points, as many other healthcare markets in the West, Japan comes with regulatory and institutional hurdles. For European companies, that's very often that Japanese study data is required for approval in Japan. And sometimes documents have to be provided in Japanese. So therefore, you definitely need a partner to address the market. Mutual recognition schemes are still not really existent. So the systems are not too far from each other, but there's some differences which need to be addressed. Drug pricing, there have been some issues in recent years where the Japanese authorities cut prices, which affected a little bit the business climate. That's especially important for big pharma. And recently, because of the other issues, there has been a drug lag or drug loss, how it is called in Japan, which is that most of 2/3 of all the drugs that are approved in the West, in Europe and in the US, don't reach the market because just pharma companies are not taking the risk or taking the necessary money to bring those drugs to the Japanese market. And also, Japan has, for example, failed to develop its own COVID vaccines domestically. So the dependence of towards the foreign markets or foreign players is large, and this has to be addressed. And is everywhere where with an aging population comes a lack of of qualified personnel, of course. Next slide, please. So here, this is the only slide where I referred to other biotechnologies. So besides healthcare, also biomanufacturing and green bio, so agriculture and forestry. I'm staying with healthcare and red bio. A big target for the Japanese government is the development or support of development of biopharmaceuticals, including vaccines, also the development and production of drugs, supporting genome related personalized medicine, for example, and developing databases for this. And one of the goals is to become that was recently added, a leading destination for drug discovery, just to address the problems that I just mentioned on the last slide. So for European companies, hot markets are definitely biopharmaceuticals, regenerative medicine, gene and cell therapy, etc. Next slide, please. So, and through the next slides, I will go quickly. There's a lot of information, but maybe you can have access to the slides later on after the webinar and have a look at it. So here you see the main pharmaceutical players in the market. Data is pre-COVID, so it might not be completely up to date, but it gives you a general impression of who are the main players. And many of them are actually open to innovation jointly with foreign partners and also foreign startups and bioventures. I just give as an example, Mochida Pharmaceutical, which just contacted us to help them promote their call for open innovation, which is currently up on the website, and I invite you to have a look at it. And similarly, you find on other companies' homepages, you find calls for open innovation or the pharmaceutical therapeutical areas in which they are active. Next. So here also, as an example, to give you an idea of how interaction works, this is license deals with foreign countries. So the US is top, but Europe is just behind. And on the right side, you see data pre-COVID as well, but in terms of numbers of in-licensing deals between Japanese pharmaceutical companies and European companies. Still very few with the Central and Eastern European companies, but there's a growing interest there as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? So also important, the institutional side. As the EU Japan Center, we're in close contact with the two big global bio communities in the Kanto, so the capital region, Greater Tokyo Bio Community, and also in the Kansai area around Osaka, Kobe, and Kyoto. Next one. So, and last but not least, Japanese bioventures may be also in an important, interesting partner if you've to find partners in the same field doing similar research, because incorporating with them, you could learn a lot about the Japanese market. And on this database, you basically can browse them and find like-minded companies in the Japanese market. So that was it from my side.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for letting us teaching us more about the third largest market in the world Japan has in the biotechnology industry. I see a hand raising. If you could please ask your question in the chat box, we will address it in the Q&A session after all speakers have completed their presentation. Then I would like to continue with Stijn Lambrecht, who is our manager for digital here at the EU Japan Center, and he will introduce a little bit more about digital innovation within Japan. Floor is yours.
You are muted.
Okay. We can hear you now. Apologies.
Yes,
Okay,
now
let me start again.
Yeah.
I will start with first giving you a short overview of the status and the driving forces in the digital area. Now, I will mainly talk about the digital innovation, digital transformation, which is a subcomponent of the ICT industry and the whole digital area. And this Japanese ICT industry is one of the major sectors in Japan, with a nominal GDP of about 52 trillion yen, which is around 300 billion euro, and it represents about 10% of Japan's GDP. Japan is currently grappling with a lot of challenges. So we have the aging society, we have a shortfall in ICT professionals. It's the same issue that Daniel already highlighted. There are not enough people in the sector available that can contribute. And added to that, we also had the COVID-19 pandemic. So we had a lot of factors that created a crucial momentum from both the private and the public sector to accelerate transition towards digitalization. And of course, the government is also very interested to push this area. And for that reason, they are taking a lot of initiatives, such as in September 21, they have launched the Digital Agency. And this agency has the objective to accelerating the adoption of digital technology across online government services, infrastructure, and this would also have a spillover effect in the private sector. And furthermore, in June 22, the government laid out a basic policy for a vision of the digital garden, city nation, a vision which includes implementing digital services to also solve rural issue. In Japan, there is also the issue that the countryside people are moving away. We have less people there. And with this new plan, we would bring, or Japan would bring, digitalization all over Japan. Now, despite all of these initiatives to improve the digital domain, Japan has been actually steadily slipping in the widely recognized digital competitiveness ranking from the Institute for Management Development. They dropped from rank 23 in 2019 to rank 32 in 2023. And within the region here, if we compare that to South Korea is at rank 6, Taiwan is at rank 9. So Japan's performance is less impressive. And it also means that, let's say, the opportunities are here to more quickly address this digitalization, not just within the whole society, but also within the industry. On this slide specifically, you see three big colors: knowledge in purple, technology in blue, and future readiness in green. And Japan is scoring not very well in each of them. Mainly in the purple area, the shortage of talent, which is a really major issue. In the blue area for technology, we have a difficult regulatory framework. It's a little bit scattered. And in the green area, the business agility is rather on the low side. So within digital, what does this mean for the industries? Because there are a couple of industries that are particularly impacted by this whole digital innovation. Firstly, Japan is an industrial manufacturing powerhouse, and the integration of IoT, AI for smart manufacturing is really going to shape the future of the industry. And the industry is very well aware about the need to change, and a lot of things are happening in this area. We also have healthcare, a bit connected to the previous presentation, where also digital health solutions such as telemedicine, AI-driven diagnostics are really areas where digital innovation is important. And a specific segment here is elderly care, which represents a really unique opportunity for digital innovation in Japan. But there's also the financial sector, where new mobile platforms can be integrated. There's also retail as a very important sector where digital tools can enhance customer experience. And finally, a much smaller sector, but also important in agriculture, with a decreasing number of farmers, smart farming has been identified as actually a critical growth field. And we also note that European manufacturers cover almost 60% of imported agricultural machinery and enjoy quite a good brand reputation in Japan, since they're known for their high quality and advanced machines with future-oriented technology. So if we go further in detail and we take a look at individual technologies, the center has published a paper which outlines how different technologies are being implemented in Japan. At the top first, I have popular solutions, which are technologies that have a comparatively higher adoption rate and which are also perceived as important for future investments. We have the very common technology like cloud computing, robotic process automation here, for which in particular the banking and the finance sector in Japan is leading at the moment. And while these are popular solutions, there's actually still quite a lot of growth for this segment, such as I added some data for public clouds, for which the market size is expected to significantly increase in the coming years. Then we have growing solutions, which indicate a lower adoption rate. However, they are perceived as highly important for future investments. And here we have the very, at the moment, very popular technologies of AI, IoT, especially to improve business efficiency, productivity, and cost reduction. And especially this IoT is forecasted to be really giving a lot of growth in the manufacturing and in the retail industry. And the automotive industry in IoT would cover about 1/3 of the project. And this is a quite important market for Japan, as you probably all know. But then at the other hand, we also have AI, very popular worldwide. But if you look at the market projections, the AI would really explode in the coming years from about 7 billion euro now to 34 billion euro in 2030. And then finally here we have promising solutions, which are solutions that have a low adoption rate, but that have a growing interest for future investments. And especially for Europe, I think cybersecurity is also an area where European companies can contribute for the expansion of this field. Now, at the bottom, I have a couple of untapped solutions as well, which also have a low adoption rate. They have, at the moment, still relatively low interest for fewer corporate investments, but are nevertheless worldwide to look into, as they are also sectors and areas that are expected to grow. And here we have intelligent devices, robotics, drones, blockchain, advanced IT system, and infrastructure. Now, what does this all mean for specific opportunities for EU SMEs? we know that Japanese companies generally focus on hardware and are actually traditionally less effective in software development. So therefore, SMEs from the EU with unique applications should have, in principle, good opportunities for software solutions. And specifically solutions to improve business process and operations such as trust services, secure data exchange platforms, but also software as a service solution supporting back office operations. But at the same time, also very industry specific solutions to leverage AI, IoT, network and sensor technologies, and also to improve user interfaces and user experiences. And I'm specifically thinking here about these traditional industries, the manufacturing industries that are really in need of these kind of solutions. But of course, now all industries, without exceptions, are actually disrupted by this digital transformation. However, some industries or areas will do likely better, as EU and European countries are often commended for their expertise and initiatives in specific areas, which can actually foster trust to create new business relationships. And to give you a couple of examples, in automotive, we have in Europe a strong and respected automotive sector. In manufacturing, we have the initiatives for Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0, which are also known in Japan very well. In green, we have the lead that the EU is taking in environmental solutions. And in digital trust services, there have been successful e-government services in Estonia, Denmark, and we believe that especially EU SMEs are well positioned to seize these types of areas and fields to fill a significant gap in Japan's digital domain, especially in software development. So that will be all for me today.
Thank you, Stijn, for your wonderful insights into the growth opportunities within the digital innovation, assessing the link between the multiple core sectors that digital innovation relates to. I would then like to proceed to give the floor to Manuel Hubert, who's the Managing Director of the EU Japan Center for Industrial Cooperation, who will introduce the services of the center a little bit more for you. If you could share your own audio, maybe. Yes, floor is yours.
Okay, so good afternoon, good morning, everyone. So thank you, Mirte, for the introduction. So yeah, I'm the EU side managing director of the EU Japan Center, because we are a co-funded organization between the European Commission and Japanese Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, METI, which gives us an edge in compared to other European organizations who don't have necessarily this direct contact with the Japanese ministry. So today I will just give you a very short glimpse of our activities, and of course you are welcome to contact us if you want to know more also about the other activities that we are having at the center. So if we go to the next slides, this slide just gives you a broad overview of the activities that we have. We have over 20 different activities spanning from training program, business services, support related to our research and development cooperation and innovation, more policy related information, and also supporting industrial clusters and region. Then one word about Team Europe coordination. We are indeed working very closely with the member state trade promotion organization, which are based here in Tokyo, by, for instance, sharing booth at certain trade fairs. So if now we go specifically into certain activities which are directly relevant for SMEs internationalization. Then if we go to the next slide, so basically there are 3 steps for an SMEs to internationalize. First, to get the information about the market and get prepared to enter the market. Then to receive tailored information from experts, and finally to be able to meet potential partners, connect via business matchmaking. So we are offering comprehensive sets of services covering these three dimensions. Market intelligence, this means reports, sector reports, business culture reports. We have a portal with over 400 reports, which we update on a regular basis. And this is accessible free of charge to any SMEs or EN partner organization, by the way. So if we move to the next slides, what we organize also are dedicated market access workshops. Actually, we co-organize with you, EN partner organization in your country or online. This can be specific to a sectors or can be more general about the business environment in Japan, depending on your interests. Usually, this is done in preparation to a business mission that you are organizing in Japan. And if we go to the next slide, we have also a dedicated training program, which is called Get Ready for Japan. It's a 2-week program, so no, it is one week online and 1 week on site, which is about, as the title says, getting SMEs program managers ready to connect with Japanese partners. And so it is composed of different components, lectures by experts about the business environment, about the business channels, how to negotiate with Japanese counterparts, and also an on-site week, which involves individual company meetings. So we set up dedicated meetings with potential partners. We visit a trading house, and we have other types of activities. So this is for this, and we have the next session will be next week. So this is already closed in terms of call, but there will be another session in October of this year, and we intend to publish the call for application by the end of this month, which should probably remain open until the end of the summer. So if you are interested to apply, please keep an eye on our website for this call to be open soon. And next slide, please. Yeah, as I said, we also have experts help desk. So we have one on the EPA, the free trade agreements, where we can provide information about the current rules in terms of tariff, these types of dedicated information related to trade. But also we have a help desk on innovation and technology cooperation, where we can put you in contact with university research centers, inform you about IPR issues. And similarly, we have one on tax and public procurement matters, where we can provide you tailored information thanks to our experts in these two very technical domains. Then next slide, please. Yeah, and of course, we are the local EN partner in Japan, so meaning that we are offering the services as an EN partner. We disseminate the information, the profile of Japanese companies interested to find a partner in Europe through the EN networks, and vice versa. We disseminate the profiles of European companies that you mentioned that are looking for Japanese partners through our networks of over 3,000 entities in Japan. So we've been the EN Japan for 11 years now, or 12 years actually, and yeah, we reached our 400th partnership earlier this year. Then if we move on, we have another website. Actually, it's 3 portals. It's another, which is called EU to Japan, dedicated to 3 sectors: food, green, and digital. And these are portals where companies can have their own personalized page, promotion page, translated into Japanese by our services, which can serve as a kind of, if you want, business card to potential Japanese partners. So the Japanese EU to Japan food exists for a number of years, and it's very successful. Now we have been launching this year the green and digital one, and we hope that it will also attract a lot of interest from the Japanese importers and potential customers. Yes, the next slide. So an important activity that we are doing here at the EU Japan Centers is organize business mission in order to create these direct contacts with potential partners and clients. And so we have different missions per year. So the upcoming missions, and these are precisely those which have been the focus of the presentation today, on the biotech in October of this year, and digital the same month. Then we'll have one dedicated to startups at the Innovation Leaders Summit, which is dedicated event to startups. Then in January of next year, we'll have an event, trade fairs. We'll participate to a trade fair dedicated to robotics, and then in March, one on green technology. So usually our business mission is composed of different elements, a matchmaking event, the participation and exhibition to a trade fair where the center has its booth and companies can exhibit their services, their product. There are business B2B meetings organized, and there is a whole support team from the center which is there to help also the companies who are there, including interpreters who can also help for the interpretation. Next slide. I will then just speak about the two upcoming missions briefly because the cores are still open. So this is for the biotech missions, which will take place from 7 to 11 October. So actually we extended the deadline until next week, 13 June. So you can still apply, or your members can still apply. So I hope you can promote this within your member network. And as you can see, this is the schedule which is foreseen for this business mission. And what is interesting is that this is the largest biotech partnering event in Japan. So this is really a place to go to if you want to do business in Asia. And on top of it, we also participate to we organize a biotech and pharma partnering conference the first day in Osaka, where as Daniel explained, this is also an important life science cluster. Then if we look at the next one, regarding the digital business mission, so Stein explained you all the opportunities in these sectors. There again, we will have a business mission from the 14th to the 18th of October this year. The call is also open with the deadline being set on the 13th of June, so at the end of this month. Again, CTEX is one of Asia's largest IT and technology trade fair focused on digital innovation, IoT, 5G, and AI. And this is the program which is foreseen for this trade fair. So I think this concludes my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and give you back the floor.
Thank you very much, Manuel, for this concise overview of existing supports that SMEs can leverage to do business here in Japan. We have prepared a little bit of a overview for doing business in Japan, the culture and business etiquettes. With an eye on the time, I will skip into the last slide of a general summary for do's and don'ts. Any of the information that is on the slides, you can find back within the EU Japan Centers Doing Business in Japan webinar series. We have a specific webinar series on doing business in Japan and on cultural business etiquette as well. So if you're very interested in this topic, I invite you to visit our webpage and to have a look at the whole webinar series there, which is much more detailed. Some of these do's and don'ts will as well also be covered by our next speaker, who is Bogos Ostrowski. Bogos is specializing in establishing drug discoveries collaborations within Japan and Korea, and has 10 years of experience as the Director of Business Development at Cellvita. He has been a participant of one of the Japan Centers programs in the past. And thank you so much, Bogos, for being here with us today and sharing your experience. The floor is yours.
I wanted to thank you very much for the invitation, and I'll be very glad to share some of the advice from my side regarding the entrance to the Japanese market. So, as you mentioned, basically for the last, 8 years, I've been responsible at our company at Cellvita in establishing collaborations in Japan. And there were a few, let's say, hard-learned lessons that I'll be very glad to share with our listeners today. First of all, can you tell me if you can see the screen correctly?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, we can see your slides.
Wonderful, excellent. So I'll start. So as a beginning, I just wanted to share the reason why exactly are we here in Japan. So as Daniel and some of your other colleagues have presented, Japan is, of course, an exceedingly important market when it comes to biotech and pharma. And we are actually, I represent a company that is based in Poland and in Croatia that is doing drug discovery. So we are a clinical drug discovery company that specializes in various types of scientific activities. And due to that, we are mainly collaborating with companies in Europe, but also in the US. And Japan was quite a natural step at some point to expand into, because, like mentioned, this is a very important market. But it was not easy, I have to say. So at the beginning, we have experienced some drawbacks, and I hope that maybe some of the advice that I will share will help our listeners to avoid that. So first of all, the important thing that I wanted to mention is that you have to be truly aware of the immensity of these cultural barriers. So the Japanese market is really not like all the others. The differences between our cultural languages are immense. It's sometimes not visible from the initial set of discussions, because Japanese are, of course, exceedingly polite and trying their best to, of course, proceed with the discussions. But in some cases, there may be situations when the discussions will completely just stop, and you will have completely no idea what has happened. So this is very important to really focus on when focusing on Japanese market, to prepare yourself. So basically, don't treat it as yet another market to expand into, but treat it as like a special task. I would also advise whoever would like to initiate any new collaborations in Japan to always get advice from either a company that has been already working with the Japanese market and maybe is in a similar area of business, or an organization like the EU Japan Center, for example, because they can help avoid a lot of potential mistakes and a lot of issues that you will be surely facing in these discussions. And finally, another way is to get a support from a local agent. But by a local agent, I mean a private person that will be representing your company in Japan and supporting the discussions, not a trade agent, because trade agents won't really help you too much. But the private agent will definitely be quite useful. So second thing is that just the fact that you are a company, you represent a company that is based in EU, provides you with some advantages from the early start. And of course, if you have them, it's best to use them as much as possible. So the first very important thing is that the fact that we are based in European Union means that we can mention that we have a very high level of IP protection, and this is extremely important in Japan. So in Japan, they are of course afraid of any, let's say, potential issues that may be in, let's say, maybe an issue when working, for example, with Chinese companies. And high level of IP protection is something that it's always really good to emphasize. So that's the first thing. Second thing, Europe is old, with a long history, with a lot of experience in various fields. So it's really useful also to emphasize the sort of history and cultural and scientific heritage. So if your company doesn't have this sort of long history that you can emphasize, try to use other, let's say, scientific fields that are represented in Europe or your country, if possible, and to emphasize that we are actually coming out of somewhere, that we are not a company that has it's just a brand new startup but actually has a lot of scientific background. Next thing, I think it's quite a good practice actually to share a slide about your city, your country, especially if it's less known. Of course, if you're from Paris, well, probably there's no need to emphasize that too much. But in many cases, some of your listeners may actually not know, for example, too much about your particular city. So I think it would be really good it is really nice to present at least a few basic facts, maybe a nice photo, and have a sort of side discussion about your heritage, that you're also quite proud of where you're coming from. And finally, I mentioned the issues, let's say, that sometimes the Japanese companies may be facing when working with some of your competitors. So very often you will be competing with companies that, for example, are in China or in India, or maybe internally in Japan. And what is very important here is to absolutely never share any negative opinion on your competition. Never basically trash talk them. Absolutely, this is something that is not acceptable and that may provide very negative results. So always be sure to be very neutral or just avoid the topic altogether. Next thing I wanted to mention is that it's actually bad news because no matter how hard you'll be trying, no matter what sort of patience, skill, and strength you will possess, you will never be able to navigate the intricacies of internal relations in any large companies. So you may be aware from all the materials, for example, presented by EU Japan Center, various internal processes that are happening in the company, like, for example, Nemawashi or Ringi process, which are incredibly interesting, but actually you as a foreign company will never participate in them directly. You will never have any chance to affect them directly. And because of that, it is very important to have somebody who will be able to help you with that. And for that, you actually need to find your ambassador in the partner company. Ambassador, by ambassador, I mean somebody who is helping you in the company to move things internally. So this is usually one contact person that has been designated as a contact person, but it's very important to have a good relation with him, because if he will understand that what you are proposing can actually be beneficial for the company, then he will be able to help you in ways that nobody else will be able to. So, for example, this means that, for example, in some of our collaborations in the past, we had situations where we had a single person as a sort of ambassador in a partner company, and they were mentioning some advice that was absolutely crucial. Like, for example, oh, there's an HR director that doesn't speak English, but he's actually blocking some of the processes because he's worried about something. And he then basically sharing advice, please send some materials to this guy, because then we can basically move things forward. And this means that this ambassador will be able to move things forward for you on your behalf. And this is very important to make sure that you have good relations with him and that he will never, ever lose face in your discussions. So never, ever do something that will put him in a bad position. Next thing, something that may be quite unusual for many of us that are based in Europe and used to the European way of making business is the giving of gifts. So in Europe, it has rather negative connotations. So this is more like you can give a gift if you're visiting a family, but not a company. But in Japan, it's absolutely normal and it's kind of expected. Of course, nobody will make you feel that they expected it, but once you start doing it, you'll realize that this is just a part of the custom. So it's always good to keep that in mind and basically adapt to their expectations. This means that you always should be bringing some gifts, but these usually should be rather low-cost gifts, so nothing too expensive, but also nothing low quality. If there's a very special occasion, like for example, you're celebrating a large, long collaboration with your partner, then basically it's good to bring something a little bit more expensive, but something that can be displayed in the company office. So something that is not treated as a bribe, like a watch, but a sculpture, for example, anything that they can put in the company. And from my personal experience, the best gifts are usually the local sweets from your country that are beautifully packaged. So packaging is extremely important. It's usually even more important than the gift itself. Make sure that the gift is beautiful and make sure that it's something that may not be controversial and may not be treated as a bribe. And the way to process that is that during the business meeting, usually the most senior person on your side at the end of the meeting gives it as a gift to the most senior person on their side. And usually they will not open it in front of you, but surely they will appreciate it. Next thing is the communication. Well, as we heard in many parts of this webinar already, the communication with the potential Japanese partners is extremely important because there are a lot of things that may actually go wrong there. So if you are making sure that the communication style is right, remember that there may be a few things that you should keep in mind. First of all, in many situations, the Japanese thinking that it's not
sound
perfect.
is breaking a bit.
Sorry?
Okay, yeah, could you just repeat the last sentence you said because the sound was a bit breaking?
Oh, my apologies. So you should keep in mind that in many situations, the Japanese speak English actually very well, but are not feeling confident to do it publicly in front of their colleagues. So in many situations, they may prefer email communication rather than teleconferences. So don't propose to teleconferences too often. And a second thing is expect that basically face-to-face meetings are absolutely crucial and important to build up trust. So expect to travel, expect that you will have to be in Japan from time to time if you want to establish some serious collaborations. Next thing, which was quite surprising to me at least, is that it's very useful to send the materials before the teleconference, before the meeting. Because in Europe, usually people don't read that. But in Japan, almost always, if you send some materials before the meeting, people will go through that, feel a bit more confident about what you're about to present to them and discuss, and will actually have more productive questions. So it's a very good idea to send these materials beforehand. And finally, if you have in your company or your anyway or in any way you can get an access to a Japanese speaker that who could support you, this is very useful because a lot of the discussions may actually get stuck if some of the people are not feeling comfortable with English language. And finally, I wanted to present, this is an example slide that I'm sometimes using when presenting our company to potential Japanese partners. So a few points that are presented here. So always emphasize how long you have been on the market, so that you will not disappear next year, but that you have been actually for several years already discussing with various Japanese companies. Emphasize that you're not talking only to this particular company, but you are present on the market and will be present. Mention that if you have somebody local, it's always good to emphasize it. Mention the IP protection. Like I said, this is a very good point that is almost relevant to almost anybody working, anybody based in Europe. And if it's relevant for your business, also make sure that you're aware of the shipping procedures because they can be a bit tricky and require some, let's say, more custom approach. And well, that is all from my side.
Thank you so much, Bogus. I'm sure that our listeners are greatly benefiting from your hands-on advice and your valuable experience here in the Japanese market. I would now like to open the floor for any questions that our listeners may have. If you have a question, please enter it into the chat. I already see one from Marcel van der Kooi about the digital innovation. So Steiner would like to forward this question to you. As in the healthcare, the Japanese language is so important. Does the same apply for digital solutions? Or is English also an option in this case?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think in even more so in digital solution, the Japanese language is even more important, as for the digital companies that I usually meet, the level of English is usually on the low side. However, it depends, of course, with what kind of company you would interact. If you would interact with a bigger company that is active in the manufacturing sector, in the automotive sector, you will find more people that will speak English and that can interact with you. But in general, it also depends on from person to person and from situation to situation that you will be able to use English. But I would say even more than in, let's say, healthcare, it's in all the ICT, digital related area, the level of English is a little bit lower, I would say.
Thank you so much. If anybody else has another question, please enter that into the chat. And this is just a small reminder to everyone that this webinar is also being recorded, and you will be able to find the recording back at the webinar series Embracing Global Markets website. If there are no further raised hands or questions in the chat, I'd like to thank all our speakers again, and I would also like to introduce our last speaker, who is Mr. Benno Wijsner. He is the head of internationalization at Zenit, and is also the chair of the digital sector group within the Enterprise Europe Network, and he has prepared some closing remarks for us to tie the webinar together. Benno, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mirte, and thank you to the EU Japan Center and ASMEA for the invitation. So some personal words. So my host organization is Zenit. We are located near to Düsseldorf, and from our own experience, I can say we have a long time of history in cooperation with Japan, because nearly 500 Japanese companies are located here next to Düsseldorf. Already last weekend, we had a big Japanese Düsseldorf Day with many thousands of visitors. So there's some experience, and also from time to time, we give advice from our organization to Japanese companies located in our region. So myself, I would say I'm the chair of the sector group Digital. As you maybe know, in the Enterprise Europe network, we have a lot of EN advisors, and to focus that, we work in different groups. So we work on the digital technologies, and we have 200 members from all over Europe in our group. Really active are about 80 members at the moment, and we really like to work with the EU Japan Center over the years. So it's really nice. And what we see that there's really makes sense to work here together with Japan and Europe. At the moment, we see that more than 5% of the EU companies are essentially IT companies, but we know all companies, 100% of the companies are going digital. So there's a great need to implement the latest IT technologies, such artificial intelligence, IoT, and robotics. And I see here also a good connection and transfer maybe with Japan. So there's already we saw this already also in the presentations today, that there's high need, but of course there's a need to understand the different cultures between our countries and to learn how we have to work together. So it's so important to take part in this kind of missions the EU Japan Center offers. And we really support this with our sector group. So we find really good ways to cooperate also in the future together. And yeah, thank you for invitation and this short closing remarks. So I hope we go forward in the future for more activities and find good ways to work together. So thank you.
This has concluded the end of the webinar.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for listening,
Mhm.
and we hope to see you at the next webinar, which is scheduled, I think, for the whole series next week, on a different country, but still very interesting to listen to. Thank you for your time and have a great day.
Bye bye. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.